So this will bring me into my shading. I automatically go for purple shading, but that's just like my default. Sometimes if I want to convey a different mood, then that's when I start using like reds and blues and stuff. So I now have this shading layer, which I'm gonna just name it shading. And my default that I use for shading is multiply, but definitely play around with the different options that your program gives you. I have a lot with this, and they all do very different things. Play around with them, find what you like, find what conveys something cool, just whatever you like. I usually don't think too much about light source. I just kind of pick a part of the canvas that I want the light to come from. That's it. That's all I do. Some people have a harder time with it. I've done a lot of studying in real life on how light works, and I am by no means perfect at it, but I do have a general understanding of how light works. So just be sure to study it if it's something you struggle with. So lighting can really change a piece. Placement does become important if you're trying to convey something, and this piece is meant to be happier. So what I'm going to do is have the light source up in this corner here, the right corner, so that it's coming down on both of their faces, and it just keeps the piece overall bright, and the parts that'll be darker are like the legs and stuff. We want the main focus to be their happy faces, not so much legs. So I honestly, no matter what, start with faces. I just take my G pen, zoom in to the face, and just get started. I do leave my shading layer at 100% opacity as I work, but later I will change it, and I'm actually going to change this to a darker purple. But I leave it at 100 opacity so that I can make sure I have colored all the areas, because when you turn down opacity, you can like easily miss something when you're coloring it. Like, see, there's this little spot here that I missed, and I didn't even know I missed it. I thought I might have colored it. So I just change it later. That's personal preference. I make sure that my shading is nice and clean and nothing is forgotten. And let's see, the lighting is coming down. This is actually going to be a little farther over, I'd say. I am by no means like super specific about where things go. I just know that light's projecting down, so this is also going to be projecting down. I usually focus on sections before just like instead of going all over the place. So right now I'm not focusing on shading any of the hair, I'm just focusing on shading Sunny's face. It just helps me keep track of where lighting should be, instead of going hog wild all over the place. I will also say that having the layer opacity at 100 means that when I go over, like this spot right here, I don't notice it as much when it's down, but when it's up, I'm like, oh, I accidentally went over, and so I can just easily fix it. Also, there's this hair here, so I'm gonna just shade like that. Because the sun is over here, there should be a bit of a shadow right here in the hair, and this is where I'm going to start shading hair. I think the shading process is pretty standard. I haven't got much to say about it. Just to study and try different things. I think it's very important to get out of your comfort zone with art. I mean, art shouldn't be stressful, but for me, my goal is to cope and to improve. So some people just want to do it for fun, and like that's so totally okay. It doesn't have to make sense. That's art, whatever. You don't have to do all this studying if you don't want to. But for me, that is what my goal is, or one of them. So yeah, if that is the goal you'd like to take too, then go for it. Do as much or as little studying as you please, because it's art and it's your world and you can do whatever you want, and that's why it's so much fun. I'm going to start working on Lilith's face. Just work my way down the canvas. Lilith's face is going to be more shaded because of her hair, and also the sun being like, or the lighting being over here, kind of behind her. And sometimes I just want to make sure this is looking good, so I turn down the opacity to a more normal area, and yeah, this looks great so far, so I turn it back up. And then I just continue with what I was doing. Just helps to like make sure things are going how you're wanting. I'm actually going to gradient this tail shading by using the lasso tool and just selecting where I'd like to use the gradient tool. So start here and bring it out like that. It looks real nice, looks very good. Because this is also a darker area, I'm going to select here and take the gradient tool once again and do it very lightly on these ones. These patches of light here. So they're still getting light on them, but not as strong. And quite honestly, there's a lot of other places I could do this for, which I might. I don't tend to do that very often, it's usually select areas, but there are other areas that it would make sense on. So I might go in and do that. And you know what? Why not try something new with this piece? Let's add more gradients. Just go crazy. I'm gonna do the ear as well. be kind of specific about where I select though. Let's just go like, man, heck yeah. Go crazy, go stupid. This area too, why not? Go for it. Maybe a little bit in here. Cool. Look how awesome that is. That is nice. Gradients are cool. Okay, I believe it is now ready to turn the opacity down. Let's see. Dynamite. Let's see here. Let's try out some others. That looks kind of cool. It's too dull for what I'm going for. What was art difference? Ooh, that one's kind of nice. I like that. I don't know. I also have to keep in mind that overlays are going to heavily change how this looks. So I think I will stick with multiply for now. My next step is that I usually tend to go in, or at least lately, have been taking my transparent watercolor brush, setting it to, I don't know, 50 or so. It changes throughout the process. But I like to go in and just blend out some areas. So I'm just gonna do that now. I don't blend all of the edges, just where I think the light will hit it the most and where it would be the most blended. So like, I think you'll see how it goes. Okay, so now the main shading layer is done. Just gonna turn it up to 70 on the opacity. So here's the progress so far. I'm now going to do a little bit of gradient work with the shading. I made another layer above the shading layer that I had before, and I'm just gonna put on a multiply and just do that. And make it pretty dim. Let me do 25. Doesn't make that big of a difference. 30 is good. Okay. Now we get started with overlays, which is the fun part. I tend to use a pink overlay. It just looks so good. So you make another layer above the multiply shading layers and pink that is, like I said, my main thing. I like to go between, let's see, screen, no, not for this piece. Lighter. Okay, now I take another layer, clip it, add glow, and I'm going to do hair highlights. So I take my watercolor brush, which looks kind of streaky. It's at 25 right now. And wherever I think the light hits, I just start adding little marks. Okay, so I leave that at 100 opacity. I make another layer, clip it, glow layer as well, and I take my transparent watercolor that I used to blend my shading earlier, and maybe 40 for the brush size. Actually, 45? Let's see. That's better. That's better, I think. And I go over those marks I made where the light's hitting. Usually just the more important light, like areas that the light is hitting. I then will turn down the opacity for this one. And I sometimes blend it out a bit with the same brush. Usually I blend only one side, the side that is facing away from the light source. I'm going to make another glow layer, clip it, all that jazz, and this time I'm taking my watery brush and I'm gonna do some little marks here in the hair, and I will do something with them in just a moment that you will see. Okay, so now what I do is I go back down to this first layer that we did with the watercolor brush, and I turn down the opacity a bit. I change it depending on how it looks compared to this last layer that we made. So I want it to still be visible. Okay, now I go, let me make that an even number. I just usually keep them at even numbers. Or, you know, like a 5 or an even number. And now I take my eraser and I do a clean swipe across the top and the bottom. So now what I like to do is I go ahead to the line art layer, turn it to multiply, and I go to the effect area and I add the border effect and then the watercolor, turn it down to 3 for the range, and then the opacity is 15 as I mentioned earlier. And what that does, I'll show you the difference here. This is how I make my line art look very soft. It just kind of adds like a little blend to it. And when you zoom out, it looks a lot softer. Sometimes I go to 2 if I think it's too strong, but I usually just determine if it needs to be lower or higher on the range after I color my liner. So I make a new layer above the liner, and I clip that layer, and then I just zoom in. Actually, hold on. This piece is mostly purple, as a lot of my other pieces are, so I just color pick the one of the darkest areas on the shading for this, and I darken that a bit. I'm going to make it a little more blue, on the blue hue. Take my bucket tool and I fill that whole thing in. Let me show you the difference. From black to purple, it already looks much softer. So now that we have a base color for the liner, I'm going to go in and I use my color picker throughout this process very heavily. So we're going to start with the fur. Take a darker tone shade of the mane and I'm going to make it more purpley to fit in with the palette more. And I just color over the liner all the areas where there's, I'm going to make this a little bit darker. There we go. I want that mane to pop out. Anywhere that there's mane fur, I just color that liner. And I don't worry about going over the face right now. That's totally okay as long as I'm not getting the blue areas of the face, because I'm going to leave the outline of the muzzle and stuff this purpley color. Most likely I might change it a little bit lighter, if anything, but other than that I just avoid it. Because the palette of this is purple, when I'm color picking I will automatically turn the hue a little bit closer down towards the purple, so this gets to be more red. I'm gonna make it a little darker, a little orange. There we go, that's good. And now I'm going to do the face details, which I do the eyes, and usually around the mouth is black. These I make sure eyelashes and such are just pitch black because I want them to stand out. They're very important parts of a piece because they're on the face. So I focus strongly on making them pop out. And also, I'm going to go ahead and take this lighter color, the highlights, darken that a bit, make it more purple, and then I go over the areas where the light is hitting on the hair. But I usually leave the outside lines black and just do the inner for this part. So, back to this layer, I'm gonna grab, see this looks pretty scary, but I just turned off the clipping layer to grab what color I was just using, and actually, okay, this color here. For the minor details, she has a lot more minor lines on her than Sunny does, I think. I'm gonna make this more purple, it's too cherry colored to me. Okay, so now is the fun part where I get to add blush to both of them, and they both have glowy blush. Sunny, okay, Lilith has blue, so I take my airbrush, not my airbrush, that's a lie, transparent watercolor, and I put it on a glow layer, or an add glow layer, and do it over the cheeks. And let's see, I don't know, yeah, okay. So then I copied that layer. I'm actually going to delete it. I'm just gonna, well, I know what to do. I know what to do. Hold on. Delete that multiple layer. Don't even make it. Don't bother. Don't worry. Go to the base layer. Make a new layer. Multiply. And then that did not work. We're gonna put it over Lilith's coloring. So underneath the shading, but over Lilith's coloring. Using this multiply layer underneath the glow layer is just making it a more pigmented blue. So then I go back up to the top, go to that add layer, and I take my dark pencil that I use for line art and just start doing little blush marks here and there. Okay, now I'm making another glue layer on top of that. I'm gonna go over with my transparent watercolor and do the same to Sunny. So Sunny's color, blush color is this yellow. And I just blend it out. And with this, I'm gonna try to, okay, yeah. So if I put a multiply layer underneath that glow layer and just use the same yellow, same brush, everything, makes it a brighter yellow. Blend that top layer again, add a bit more, just do whatever I need to. And then I do the same thing with the blush marks that I did to Lilith. Actually, hold on, no I don't. I make another layer above it, silly me, and I leave it at a normal layer, or normal layer type, and then I do the marks. So now what I'm going to do is change that background color. I think it looks more pink. It should be more pink. And I make a layer above it. I'm gonna grab that background color and make it darker, more purple hued. And do an upward fade to the light source. Do it a bit higher up. Turn it to multiply layer and turn it down. Let's see. Like so, and then we put one more overlay. Sometimes, let's see if it works, sometimes it looks better without another overlay. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. I think I like that. That's good. Soft light there. That's good, yeah. So because this is a light toned piece, I'm going to put a multiply layer above all of this. Take my dark pencil and take a purple, maybe a blue, yeah, indigo. And I'm gonna do my signature off to the side. I zoom back out, morph it if I need to, take my move layer thing, brush, whatever tool, and I find a good spot that it seems to look good on, which I think happens to be this tail. And I don't think I really like how the writing looks, so I'm just gonna redo it in that spot now that I know that it looks good here. I'm very particular about how my signature looks for some reason, I don't know. I think I'll actually put it right there. But it's a little too blue, so I'm taking the whole, gonna lock transparency lock it and make it more purpley. Yeah, that's much better to me. There we go. Okie doke. So I think that this piece could use a little bit of a background. And thank goodness Clip Studio Paint has so many options for little things in the background. So I'm just gonna look through here and see what looks good. Turn the frequency down so that they're bigger. And I'm gonna make a layer above it, clip that layer, turn it to a dark purple, and I merge those. Yes, I want to layer mask it. Turn the opacity down. I wonder if I think the frequency on these is too much. Turn the density down too, that looks much better. Okay, now I'm going to remerge that, turn the opacity down, and set it to multiply, which didn't really do anything. I'm gonna lock the transparency and get this very top background color and gradient it down so that it blends in a bit more. I really want to make sure that face is what you're focusing on, or the faces. Okay, one final last thing. This is the last thing as far as I know. I copied the base layer and I turn on the border effect. I'm going to turn it up to 15. 15 is good for this piece. It varies from piece to piece. I make another layer above that and I take white or whatever color I'm using for this border, which is currently white. You can change it after you do what I'm about to do. So don't worry too much about changing the white right now. I'm going in and I am sharpening out the edges that either aren't even there to begin with or aren't sharp, like right here. They're rounded and I want these to be sharp. Alright, now there's a white border. I'm going to merge that to the base layer, make a layer above it, clip that layer. Going to take the fill bucket and make it all white because, let me show you, when I turn off the base layer it's just like their base colors, so I make it white. You never see this, but it's just a neat thing for me. Turn the base layer back on, now you got your white border. And I think I will make another layer above it, clip that layer, and make it kind of a pink color, which you can't totally see, but I'm going to turn that to glow layer and turn the opacity down, and now you can see that outline is still there a bit, but it's lighter than it was before, and it also slightly is pink. And finally going to do what I did to the liner on my signature. Just just to soften it out a bit. I think I'll turn the opacity down. And there you have it. That is the process of from my color, my flat colors to my shading and refining and stuff. So yeah, I hope that this brought some insight into my process and that you enjoyed. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.